The US Vice President J.D. Vance is in Switzerland this Sunday for talks with Iranian negotiators aimed at fleshing out the fragile ceasefire agreement between the two countries. They have a number of thorny issues to work through, including Iran's decision to keep the Strait of Hormuz largely shut in protest at Israeli attacks on Lebanon. Well, at the start of the talks this afternoon, Vance spoke to the press alongside representatives from Qatar and Pakistan.
First of all, I want to thank the President of the United States, who sends his best to all the great leaders assembled here, because he's empowered us to find a diplomatic resolution to a host of issues that matter to the American people, but I think the world. The opening of the Strait of Hormuz, the ending of the Iranian nuclear program, all of these things have already been accomplished. The question before us now is how much more can we accomplish together? Can we turn over a new leaf? Can we change relations in the Middle East permanently? Or do we go back to doing things the old way, which is not our preference, but is certainly very much something that can happen.
Well, Vance there talking about the idea of turning over a new leaf in the Middle East. Not long after he spoke, though, his boss Donald Trump posted this on Truth Social. Iran must immediately stop paying their proxies in Lebanon from causing trouble. If they don't, we will hit Iran very hard again, just like we did last week. Only harder, Trump warned. So new threats then from the US president, even as those talks get underway in Switzerland. Kethevane Gorjestani with me from our foreign desk to talk about this. So we have very different messages, frankly, contradictions from the US president and his vice president. What do you make of this?
Well, look, there's a little bit of whiplash when you listen to different people, different figures in this administration. And this is yet another example. And it's a little bit also sort of undermining the broader message that J.D. Vance came with, that he mentioned also in those brief remarks, where he was saying that there was a lot of progress that had already been made, that more progress was going to be made in the next few hours, that they were sort of turning a new leaf also diplomatically in the way that they engage with the Iranians. And so he's there to do the hard work of diplomacy, to speak directly with the Iranians in a way showing that there is a sort of a new situation between the United States and Iran. We're making progress. We can make more progress. There are things to do here. And then you have the president of the United States sort of undermining that message because he's speaking as if they don't have that much hope that the Iranians are going to play ball and go along with these negotiations by already threatening to hit Iran again, even though the talks had barely started when he sent that message. So, yes, there might be this attempt by Donald Trump to sort of remind the Iranians of the stick that will be there if they don't do what he wants them to do. But at the same time, it's really not very helpful when you're in these diplomatic negotiations to have someone who is not there, who is contradicting the sort of diplomatic attempts that are trying to be made. Especially when you're talking about two countries who are already very at odds when it comes to what they're discussing. And there is a lot of mistrust among those two delegations. It's also very hard for the Pakistanis and the Qataris, who are the mediators, who are trying to get all of these people together, to get them to sort of see eye to eye, and then having those comments from the American side coming out while almost these things are happening. So this is Donald Trump. It has happened in the past. It's also contradicting Donald Trump's own messages, who just a few days ago was talking about how he thought that the new leadership in Iran were people who were very smart, who he could do business with. So it is not just contradicting J.D. Vance, it's also contradicting himself.
Okay, Kethevane, and we were just seeing images there of J.D. Vance alongside the negotiators there, the Qataris and the Pakistanis. Another thing that J.D. Vance has been talking about is the idea that they are now going to get to some of the really complex, thorny technical issues like Iran's nuclear program. Iran, though, has quite a different message today. It's saying, look, our priority is what's happening right now in the region, specifically what is happening in Lebanon.
Absolutely. The U.S. Vice President and the U.S. delegation largely are coming into these negotiations as if the last 3 days have not really happened. They're picking up from the memorandum of understanding, and these are the technical talks that were supposedly meant to start on Friday. And these were the talks that start the clock on those 60 days to get to the nitty-gritty, especially of Iran's nuclear program. That's what J.D. Vance said at the top of his remark. He said, Donald Trump wants us to find a diplomatic resolution to several things, opening the Strait of Hormuz. They were contesting whether or not the Iranians had reclosed the strait. At least that is top of their mind. And ending Iran's nuclear program. As you said, the Iranians are coming into these talks in a very different positions. For them, basically, nothing can go forward until we deal with what is happening in southern Lebanon. And in that sense, they are taking the memorandum of understanding from the top, because one of the top elements of the memorandum of understanding is the end of hostilities on all fronts, including Lebanon. And the problem is that, yes, there is a temporary pause in the hostilities in southern Lebanon, but the problem is that not everybody understands cessation of hostilities in the same way. Hezbollah, as well as Iran, insist that it's not just Israel stopping strikes. They want Israel to withdraw from southern Lebanon, while the Israelis and a little bit the Americans believe that as long as the Israelis don't fire, then that is fine. So two positions going into these negotiations with very different priorities.
All right. Kethevane Gorjestani, thank you so much.